Alright, what's going on folks? Stormwolf here, and thank you so much for your patience when videos haven't been uploaded for a while. Just kind of been going through some couple of things. Some of you that follow me on Discord or Instagram or Twitter and all that stuff kind of know what was going on, but I finally moved in and settled to the place. It's been a couple of months. Finally got some new equipment, got my mic set up and fixed, so I'm actually using the proper mic that you're hearing right now that I've used in previous videos. So everything should be in the up and up. Everything should sound a little bit better now. It won't sound like super muddied and stuff like that. Gameplay right now that you're seeing is Monster Hunter World. This is one of the event quests that's come up called the Kulve Taroth, I think is the monster's name. I believe it's still going on until the 21st, so if you want to jump in here and try and take down this beast, you still have some time. I believe it's on consoles. I'm not sure about the PC version. I know the PC version doesn't have some of the other DLC or the events that came out, so if you play on PC, let me know if this quest is available. So the way this quest works is you have to fight one of these elder dragons inside of a kind of it's a 4-part fight. The first part is you have to knock down these rocks that you've seen just now to kind of slow it down and break off some of the gold armor pieces that's all over the dragon. Once you do that, you'll proceed over to phase 2. In phase 2, you have to break pretty much all of the armor before it tries to run away, pretty much stop its advancement and movement. Stage 3, you have to pretty much do enough damage to kind of get into stage 4, and then stage 4 you have to break off the horns. Now there's different ways to actually do this. I don't think you can really solo this creature because you have to have a pretty good high damage output to actually get through the 4 phases. The weapon that I'm using right now is the Charge Blade. This is the Devil May Cry variant, so I think it's Dante's Rebellion. I don't think that quest is available anymore to actually get this weapon. They may kind of go through it in rotation sometime soon. But it's a Charge Blade. I believe its element is Thunder, and it's one of the monster's weaknesses. If I remember correctly, the monster's weakness when it's plated up, it is Water, Ice, and Dragon. I'm sorry. Whenever its golden armor is broken off, its weaknesses is Water, Ice, and Dragon, and whenever it has the gold plating on, it is Thunder, Water, and Dragon. So I use this weapon because I know it's gonna have a lot of gold pieces on it for this particular fight. I'm very familiar with the Charge Blade. I know how the weapon works. This is probably my go-to weapon. Pretty much whenever I fight something new or something I haven't fought before. I would recommend that you actually have a team that actually has like maybe 2 that have the weakness to the flesh and then 2 that has weakness to the gold, or 3 and 1, something around that. After this fight, I'll let the rest of it play out when I get done with the commentary, but I technically wouldn't recommend the Charge Blade for this fight, maybe because of the last 2 phases of the fight. For the first 2 phases, we have to knock off the gold plating, and that's kind of the main objective. It's a great weapon. You can do a lot of hits, does a significant amount of damage. Probably not the highest DPS that you can have for this, but for what it does, it's very quick, it's very easy to use. Now, whenever you get to phase 3 and 4 is where it gets a little bit harder, because phase 4, where you have to knock off the horns, it's really hard for the weapon to hit the horns and not take a lot of damage because of the phase 4 fight. And you'll see what I'm talking about once we reach that point. You see I really struggle a lot to actually hit the horns and actually help out with the bowgun. And I think that's one of the weapons that really excels well here, is either the heavy bow or the light bowgun, or even the bow and arrow if you know how to use it. You just need weapons that can really break off equipment very quick. I would also recommend the hammer, although with the hammer you have to be up close and personal, and for the last 2 phases of the fight, he has a really big speed increase, because right now, as you can see, it looks fairly easy. We're just kind of breaking off the armor, but I'm going to go ahead and fast forward over to phase 2, and then phase 2 you'll see where he actually opens up all of his attacks, and these are kind of the attacks you'll see for the rest of the fight. And then phase 3, pretty much he doesn't build his gold armor anymore, so you're just really fighting the flesh. Now, what I've seen hunters do, and this is something that I would recommend too, is once you get past the first 2 phases, if you have a strong enough weapon to switch over to take out the flesh, I would definitely switch over to that weapon. Unfortunately, since I just jumped back in the Monster Hunter, I don't have that many weapon sets like that. But for instance, since I'm using a thunder based weapon to knock off the gold, which is the main 2 objectives of the first phase, I would definitely suggest you switch over, go back to camp, and pick up another weapon that has either water, ice, or dragon damage. Now, if you have a water-based weapon, that's really good all the way around because it's weakness to both water and its golden armor and its weakness against its flesh. But definitely would recommend that. Now it's a little weird because I'm reading up on this too, and it says it's also resistant to thunder, and that's kind of something I would recommend that you check on the Monster Hunter Wiki if you want to fight the monster, so you kind of have a general understanding of how to fight it. But I enjoyed this fight a little bit. It reminds me of the older Monster Hunter games. I have a large history of Monster Hunter. I've played, I think, since their original release back in 2004. So I fought monsters like this before, and I always enjoy these kind of phase fights where you have to really work as a team to kind of achieve the victory. I really enjoy that a lot. A good setup that I would recommend, and this is kind of like fighting a monster back and forth with my friend Infiltrate. I would recommend one person kind of having something quick and easy to use so you can help break off the gold pieces for the first 2 phases. So something like either the charge blade, or if you go with the switch axe, or if you go with the hammer or something like that to break off the gold pieces for the first 2 phases. I will also have someone, at least one person needs to have a bowgun. I would recommend the heavy bowgun because it does a little bit more damage, and you have a little bit more, depending on which heavy bowgun you're using. It's a lot easier to break off pieces, such as the horns, which is, again, the main objective in Phase 4. And then you can kind of have the other 2 people kind of switch off and play it by ear of what you need. So, another thing, mantles. I would definitely recommend you use the temporal mantle and the fireproof mantle for this fight. Now, if you don't have the fireproof, you can also go with the, I believe it's the vitality mantle. Do not use the health booster. It's essentially useless in this fight, at least in my opinion. These mantles do a lot more for you, especially the temporal mantle, because for the next 30 seconds, whenever you use a temporal mantle, it will allow you to auto dodge and auto block, which is very useful for some of the fights, or some of the phases in this fight. Now, in this particular fight, there's one thing where the temporal mantle can't protect you against, and that's when he does the lava spit. And I believe you'll see it in Phase 3 and 4 of the fight, to where even though I have the temporal mantle on, I can't get out of the way because it's a consistent amount of damage and I can't consistently auto dodge. So, as you see here, as we're doing Phase 2, my concentration is to break off the tail pieces, the gold tail pieces armor, and then help with the legs. Because again, I know I can't reach the face when it's moving around like this. That's why we have someone using the bowgun. And then this guy, White, I know what he's trying to pull with the insect glaive, because the insect glaive can attack all parts of the body and it's actually very strong and very mobile. But if you do not know what you're doing with that weapon, you will cause the team to wipe, as you can see there. And this is going to happen on multiple occasions, to where White is going to be the one to pretty much almost cost us the match. He, for whatever reason, he just continuously used the insect glaive, and he would always jump in the middle of its face whenever it's doing an attack that can pretty much one-shot you if you don't have enough armor or if you don't have the defensive buffs and stuff like that. And whenever you faint in Monster Hunter, if you lose your buffs, so that means you have to self-buff yourself, and the self-buffs don't last as long as the eating buffs. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to use the insect glaive, in my opinion. There's just other weapons that do the job better. As you can see here, we're entering into Phase 3. And Phase 3 of the fight is where he pretty much sheds off the gold armor, so we don't have to worry about the gold armor anymore. We just have to worry about attacking its flesh. Now, what I would recommend, and I didn't do this because, again, I don't have a strong enough weapon to actually be effective here, I would recommend you go back to camp and switch a weapon, and, you know, kind of refill on potions and stuff like that if you don't have any. If you've used them for this fight, go eat and buff again if you need to. I would definitely recommend doing that stuff, because I don't think he can run away in Phase 3. I think Phase 3, you just have to do enough damage to enter Phase 4. Now, don't quote me on that. He could run away in Phase 3. It's just the times that I fought him and we've actually gotten to the Phase 3 fight, he's never actually ran away. So, Phase 3 is... The hardest thing about Phase 3 is that he gets more aggressive and he's a lot more quicker. As you can see, he covers a lot of the battlefield with his attacks and his speed and his movement. Whereas in Phase 1 and 2, he was very slow. You can kind of dodge pretty much anything, or if you couldn't dodge it, you can block it fairly quickly. But in this fight, in Phase 3, he covers a lot of ground. He will try and chase you. He will try and bite you and eat you and shit like that. So definitely be careful of that. One thing about the Phase 3 fight is that whenever he punches the ground and causes lava to spill out, he can't hurt himself in the lava. So if you want to get some extra damage, I believe it's 375 per tick. It's really good to kind of drag him over there and hit him, but also that lava can affect you and hurt you. You can also sleep the monster, which is I think what the bowgun are doing right now, which is why I recommend someone with the bowgun come in there, because they can use vials to fill up, or excuse me, they can use different bullets to sleep the monster, paralyze the monster, stuff like that. And the reason you want to sleep or paralyze a monster is because you can use large barrel bombs, and that's a lot easier to break off the horns. Now, I don't think I have any, which is why I'm not doing it myself, and he's actually getting prepared to do it himself. Once he actually blows it, as you can see there, that's at least 1,000 something damage to the horns alone, which is going to be really useful for the final fight, because again, the final phase of this fight, and I know I've stressed this, you know, fact a lot, you have to break off the horns. There's no other way to win it. You can't really kill the dragon. The ultimate point of the quest is to repel it, so you have to break off its horns. Now, phase 3, again, the biggest thing is its speed and its attack, and as you can see here, this attack that he's doing right now, that's the attack I was talking about with the temporal mantle. You cannot auto dodge out of that. You can auto dodge the first attack only, the initial hit. After that, you will be continuously hit against that. So my recommendation is, if you don't have the temporal mantle, I would throw on the flameproof mantle, have a cool drink, or if you have armor that gives you the fireproof skill, it will significantly reduce the damage that you take against that, so you won't die within 4 or 5 ticks, because it does do a lot of damage. And I believe later on in the fight, Mr. White here experienced that very well. But phase 3 is pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty simple once you get its pattern. You're actually entering phase 4 right now, which is the final phase, and this phase actually takes the longest, simply because it's kind of do or die, and depending on how well your team's done in terms of how many feints you have, how many resources that you have, such as potions, you know, and buffs and debuffs and stuff like that, you could really struggle in phase 4 of the fight. Now, I'm waiting on my team to kind of get there, so I'm not the only one attacking it, because there's no way to really draw aggro per se in Monster Hunter, except for like a couple of items, but none of us have the items. So if I go in there alone, he's going to be attacking me alone. And it's not necessarily a good idea to go against monsters like that alone. Now, the reason I say that is because, again, it's a huge dragon that shoots fire and lava and stuff like that, and you're a man in leather armor, you know, wielding a giant sword. It's not going to really go well for you if you go in there alone. And now, of course, I say that, and I'm pretty sure there's a YouTube video of some guy soloing this dragon, which kudos to that guy. He's a real true monster hunter, I guess. I debated about going back to camp. That's why you saw me pull up the map. I was going to go back and maybe pick a different weapon, kind of refill on potions and stuff like that, but I haven't really taken that much damage, or haven't really wasted a lot of resources with this fight, just due to my playstyle. The reason I like weapons like the sword and shield or the great sword is because I have the ability to block. And you may think that's really silly in concept, but you have no idea how many times I've played in Haunted Monsters where having a shield was life or death for me. Where there were certain attacks that I couldn't block, or there were certain attacks that I blocked that would have killed me if I had like the long sword or a bow gun or something like that. So I like being able to move. I do enough damage to be relevant. I'm not doing the highest DPS at all, and that's okay with me. I'd rather be the one doing damage over time, kind of chipping away at it and still living, than, you know, having a whole bunch of power behind me but then wiping, you know, in the first 10 minutes of the fight or something, you know what I mean? So I really do enjoy the charge blade, the sword and shield, the great sword. I haven't really experimented with the lance and the gun lance. I may try those next, because those, I think, have the highest shield. Now, this attack, I don't know how I did not get hit by that. I should have died, honestly. That was my foolish mistake. That was me trying to go for the horns. And the only way I can really hit the horns with the charge blade, if I switch over to the actual, I forget the actual name of the part where you switch over, but it's wherever you bring out the actual giant sword once you fill the vials. That's the only really way I can hit the horns and do a significant amount of damage. But because this monster moves so quick, and because of the attack pattern of the monster, it's really hard for me to hit the horns on it. Either it has to be sleeping, or I have to hit it just at the right angle, or I have to use the elemental charge attack to try and do some chip damage with it. Now here, as you can see, we paralyzed the monster. This is where I start trying to go for the head and stuff like that. I'm missing right now because, again, it's kind of hard to aim it a little bit, but I did hit a few times with the elemental attack. But for this phase of the fight, if you're good enough and your team's good enough and you're all really sufficient, I would recommend having at least 2, maybe 3 bow guns, so that way you can really hit the horns as hard as possible. Now, I think our build right now was I was using the charge blade. I believe his name is Rapid Shade was using the bow gun. My friend Infiltrate was using his bow, and then White was using the insect glaive. Which again, the insect glaive is not a terrible weapon. It's not by any means. But you really have to be careful of how you use it because it's an all or nothing type weapon. Either you're going in and doing damage or you're gonna die. And I don't think he understands the concept of he's going to die, especially on a monster like this, to where it shoots. A lot of his attacks come from its front, and that's the part where you need to hit. So him jumping in the air and him kind of like doing flips and tricks and shit, it's really kind of hindering him and hindering us, because now we have to kind of worry about him wiping 3 times. He's already done it once. Unfortunately, my friend Infiltrate wipes here. I think what happened there is he got stuck against the wall, and the way that attack works is he shoots it in a full circle. And he does damage over time. So he was kind of trapped in the corner, and because he has the bowgun set and the way that his set works, he's kind of the glass cannon. He does a shit ton of damage, but any significant heavy attack will almost one-shot him. So, and that's kind of like, and that's a good way to play too, because he's more experienced than I am in this game. He knows what he's doing, so I trust him to bring his bow build, and I trust him to do a significant amount of damage. I know when he wipes, it's not necessarily his fault he wiped. Maybe he got caught out of position or something like that, but half the time or most of the time when we play, it's because it's Monster Hunter and something happened where the monster roared and then it did an instant KO attack. It's kind of things that you really have no control over. But anyway, still continuing on with phase 4 of the fight. I believe we're almost finished with the fight here. I think me and the bowgun are doing a significant amount of damage here. I think at this point Infiltrate said he's going to stay back because I think we've wiped twice, if I remember correctly. And at this point, I think we only have 1 more or 2 more wipes on this run. And me and him did this run a bunch of times, so we was really trying not to wipe again. I think at this point, the bowgunner's using, I think he's using, oh, what shots was he using? I think he's using a lot of piercing shots so he can break the horn. And again, I think my kind of thing was like, I'll do DPS to kind of stun him. But at the same time, I know there's certain things I really can't do. I think I try and do an elemental attack here, but I end up getting hit. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's kind of one of the weaknesses of the charge blade in second form. You do significantly more damage, but a lot of the attacks are really long-winded and leave you wide open. So it's really, really easy to get hit out of an attack. And it's easy to wipe when you do those type of attacks because of the long animations and stuff like that. That actually pissed me off because I could not see it coming, and that almost killed me. Luckily, I had the fireproof mantle on, which is, again, a mantle I recommend in this fight, especially for this phase. Now here, he actually slept the monster. I think he has large bomb barrels, and I think I have enough charge to do my ultimate attack here, which I think is what I do. And I think that actually ends the fight. No, okay, so I did a regular one, but with his combination of large barrel bombs and my elemental attack, he was actually able to successfully complete the mission. And it was a fun fight. I enjoyed this fight. Definitely would like to see more like this in Monster Hunter World. Definitely do play it more than I need to play it more than I should. It's a really fun game. If you haven't tried it, I think it's on sale on all platforms. I would recommend maybe the console version over the PC version because the console version is a little bit more updated with events and quests and stuff like that. The PC version may have caught up by now, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure. But anyways, this is just kind of like a post commentary of Monster Hunter Ultimate, or I'm sorry, Monster Hunter World with the event quest. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I think the event quest is called the Hunt for El Dorado. I'm sorry. It's called the Fury of El Dorado. It's a lot of fun. I think there's one more quest too that actually has the monster. Banquet of the Earthen Hall, I think, is also where you can fight this monster. Now, this event is still going on at the time of this video. When it posts, I believe it ends on the 21st. So if you still want to hunt this monster, you have some time. Me and Infiltrate do play Monster Hunter kind of almost every night, more or less. So I'll start posting if you guys want to join in some quest. We can hunt some stuff, kind of get some materials, hunt some jewels and stuff like that. I thoroughly enjoy this game. I think it's a lot of fun. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I know it's a long one, and I thank you guys for your patience and upload videos. Expect to see more random kind of gameplay commentaries and stuff like this, because I play a lot of games. I enjoy a lot of games, so and I want to share that with you. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later.